And we're on.
Okay. So as I was saying, roughly speaking, this is a proposal to add a couple of timing points to resource timing, and by inheritance navigation timing, based on the fact that the service worker static routing API has shipped and is now in use in the wild, and people are taking advantage of it. So for background, the service worker static routing API aims to fix a performance issue that commonly shows up when you use service workers, which essentially is that they take time to start up. If you register one in your document, it can intercept all fetches, sub-resource fetches, but we have to wait for the service worker itself to initialize, and that can slow your site down. So in response to that, it's a very old proposal. This goes way back, like almost 10 years. Jake Archibald was talking about this. We've been talking about having static routing in service workers so that we can bypass that initialization step sometimes. So this is the current resource timing diagram that shows all the points that we currently measure and the rough request to response time. Service worker API, static routing API basically adds a new little bit before the service worker init. And so what you do, you can add routes inside of your install event. So in your main document, when you install your service worker, you can say, here are a bunch of URL patterns, and here are some strategies for dealing with them. In this case, this would add a route that takes anything of this particular form and says these requests can go directly to network. And if you do this, then the path kind of looks like this, right? We no longer even have to initialize the service worker. We do a route evaluation and then straight through to an HTTP fetch, hopefully speeding up your site. You can also do things like, please get this out of the cache, right? Out of the service worker cache specifically. And in that case, on a cache hit, we're down to this, right? So static route evaluation goes straight to the service worker cache, and you have a response. There's a couple other things you can do with it. You can say for some paths, please initiate a fetch event in the service worker. So this would go back to following the full path, including service worker startup if that's necessary. Or you could say, please race the network and the fetch event. In which case the browser will do both paths simultaneously, and whichever one comes back first is what you get. And all of this is standardized. This is now in the service worker spec. Chrome is shipping this. We've been shipping it for about 3 months. I checked this morning, and both Firefox and WebKit are positive on this. So we're hoping that this is going to get some pretty widespread adoption. The trouble for us is that we'd like to give developers some visibility into this. This does affect the performance of your page. You'd like to know if it's working. You'd like to know how much it's affecting it. So specifically, we want to be able to expose things like, when was static routing evaluation started? What sort of router was matched, right? Did it go to the network? Did it go to the service worker? Did it go to the cache? If there was a race between the network and the fetch event, who won that race? We want to know if the service worker cache itself is the slow part. So this was raised on resource timing by the team that's implementing this, issue number 389. They have a proposal. Oh, thanks, Nick. They have a proposal to fix this, which is on the static routing API YCG repo. And it basically adds 2 new timing points, so worker router evaluation start and worker cache lookup start, and 2 strings to the resource timing event. The 2 strings are the matched router source and the final router source. Those strings basically tell you what the strategy was that was used, right? So was this, so matched router source is when we did the lookup and all the routers you added, did it say network? Did it say cache? Did it say fetch? Or did it say race? And then final router source can basically be any of the first 3. So it allows you to disambiguate that in that race case and figure out which one was actually used. So their explainer goes into more details about exactly when those points are, and sort of what when those different values can be used. But we're hoping that adding those is a thing that we can do. There are still some open design questions that the team has asked for some feedback on. That hopefully we can get some discussion on. I mentioned that the final router source is used to disambiguate races. Sorry, the final router source will also match the matched router source. So if the router source says network, the final router source will be network. If the router source is cache, the final router source will be cache. If the matched one is a race, it'll tell you which one it is. And if nothing happens, if there are no matched routers, then currently the matched router source is blank. And they'd like to know, do we want to expose what the service worker eventually did? So we're going to trigger a fetch event. The fetch event could not be present. It could fall back. If you don't return anything from the fetch, then we'll go back to the network. So the question is, should we be exposing the fact that the service worker fell through and we did a network fetch, as opposed to responding with something else? The other issue that gets brought up is, let me go back to the cache hit here. On a cache hit, there essentially is no fetch start. And this might be different than anything that we've done in resource timing before. But we basically skipped the service worker initialization. We skipped the entire HTTP fetch, and we just pulled a response out of the service worker cache and returned it. So there essentially is no fetch start. And in that case, what should we report? Should we report 0? Should we omit fetch start? Should fetch start be some other point along this? That's basically the API. So we should open this up for discussion on these questions, but as well as anything else that people want to ask about it.
Cool. And I'll stop the recording.